Hi guys, I am just barely setting up. Short hair, what do you guys think? Different. Haven't been here for a minute. Let's see. We are gonna wait. Hey, you're in. Let me get a little request. Hi guys. All right. Let's see, I sent the request. Let's see if it works. Just waiting for Chris to join us. Let's see. Are we gonna have technical difficulty tonight? Let's see if we do. Of course we are. Never fails. All right, I'm sending you the request. Let's see if it works out. Hi guys. I really need to get a different setup, guys. It is not working. So we're just kind of waiting for Chris to jump in. I sent a request. Hey, Liza. Hey, girl. Technical difficulty always. Okay. Yes. Got it. Finally. That should work.
Hopefully it works this time.
Why does it always give me trouble, Liza? What the heck? Hi. Do I look crazy? Probably. Oh my word. I seen the request. I accepted it. All right, so we are having a little bit of technical difficulty. We're trying to get Chris of Unobtainium Welding to join us. I promise, it's not me. Maybe it is. Oh, right. Okay, so I can't see him. That's awesome. Oh, my word. Okay, well, he's not on my screen yet, so there's clearly some type of delay, just like earlier. So I'm just going to wait. So I'm going to pretend I actually see you, Chris, which I do not. This is ridiculous. I see Unobtainium SJ. Hi. I don't see him. Oh, my word. It's like the build-up, right? Can you see him, Eliza? Okay, so yeah. Ah, thank you. It's a little messy right now, but yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that, Kara. Hey, Mike. All right, let me try to add him again, you guys. Here we go. Go live. All right, there's another request.
This is it.
Hey, Brazil. All right. I'm just going to throw one of my students in.
You guys see me?
I'm going to grill you about workplace environments. All right. We will make it happen, I promise. There's always some type of technical difficulty here.
I just got the wheel of death above me here.
Anywho, so while we're waiting, one way or another, we're going to get him in.
There we go. There it is.
Holy moly, if it wasn't me trying to get you to come in or you, what the heck, dude? Hold on, now I got to figure it out. There's my big head. Hi, finally.
How are you?
Good. Now that you're in here, good grief. Hold on.
Yeah. Wow.
Trying to get you. All right. Oh my goodness, that didn't take forever. Could you see me?
Yep,
on your screen? How
you
weird.
bet.
No, I know now, but before.
No, I could
Oh,
never. I
okay.
just had the
So
black wheel of death.
they said that you were actually visible, but I couldn't see you on my side.
Interesting.
Weird. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyhow, you're here now, so thank you so much. So this is like the most unorthodox Welding Women Syndicate interview we have had, and I'm not going to do it too much like an interview. It's more just like a picking your brain and kind of, I have like a whole bunch of notes right here from random people just sending me stuff. So you were on with one of our last interviews, and one of the things that you had pointed out was I have a good workplace environment for my employees. How do I make it great? And I think you more pointed out, and we don't want to discount anybody, but you were asking how you could make it great for the women.
Yep.
So, I come in the backside because I wasn't doing the live that day, and I was like, hey, could we talk about this? Because that's such an interesting perspective. The employer asking how to make things better for the employees. So, especially as a predominantly woman run crew, like that's amazing. Like you just don't see that too often. So we're just gonna kind of like, I'm gonna tell you a few things and just ask a little bit. Of course we want to hear about all the things you do because you have like the coolest business ever. So how about you just introduce yourself and your business and what you do, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. My name is Chris McQuay. I run a small welding shop up here in Strathmore, Alberta, Canada, and we predominantly do exhaust for supercars. So, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Porsches, McLaren, and we use a lot of titanium, quite a bit of Inconel, some stainless, and we do some aluminum for some of the other parts that we've designed for the cars and the jigs that we build. So that's kind of like the basics of what we do. Up here in Alberta, it's a bit of a different program than some places. Welding is a mandatory trade. So I have my journeyman certification, and the red seal is what they call it. And so then after you get that, you can apprentice other people. And so I even taught at the college where they teach that stuff from 2007 until 2012 before I left to do consulting in this. So I'm a big believer in the program. Not only have I gone through the program, but I've taught the program for 5 years. So I'm a huge proponent of that. So we have 4 ladies working for us right now, 2 journeymen and 2 apprentices.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big deal because besides them, it's just Sam and I, and of course my wife, who's like the business manager basically.
Right. How did that even happen? Like 10 years being in the industry, I have worked with one, and now I have 4 ladies in one of my classes, but like 10 years later, how did that even happen that one of the ladies they decided this is what they want to do? Like, did you teach one of them and you brought them into your business? How did it work?
It started when I was at the college, actually, because I had one of the ladies, Kara, approach me at the college. She was taking a course. One of the other instructors had mentioned that I was doing the car stuff on the side, and she wanted to learn. And so she approached me and was like, hey, could I come and help you on a Saturday or whatever to try and pick it up? And so that was 2000 and, maybe like 8 when she first did that. And she only helped me for maybe 5 or 6 weekends. And then she was full-time after school back at her job. And then she was welding full-time, started getting into dogs, and then she got out of welding for a little bit.
Right.
And then sort of out of the blue, she contacted me just a few years ago to come back. But in the meantime, after I left the college, I keep in touch with all the instructors there because it's a great place to pull talent from. Sure. And one of the instructors had mentioned to me that there was this really special welder in his class and that he wanted me to interview her. And so I interviewed her. She was quite young, and but she had lots of promise, and that's Natasha. She's back working for me again. She started in 2014 as a second-year apprentice.
That is so cool. Can I be your apprentice? I think I ask you that every time we talk. I will move out there. Like, your work is so amazing. And I'm just kidding. I'm a little dramatic today.
But you're right. I mean, we're still working here tonight.
Wow.
And there's about half of the crew here is left, but we're doing some jobs that are time schedule stuff. And I often, on the long days where I'm working till 10 o'clock at night or whatever, or sometimes later, I often try to think of like, what would my 16-year-old self think about this? And my 16-year-old self would be like, why are you sleeping? Why aren't you just continuously never stop working on the cool car stuff?
Yes.
Well, I kind of use that to fuel myself on the long days where you're like, I'd like to go home. I have a big family. I have 4 kids. So it's like, I don't want to be the trophy dad. That was something I never wanted to do.
Right.
But on some of the long days, I always look back and be like, the super enthusiastic kid that watched Jesse James and people like that on the TV, and
Right.
Chip Foose would be like, you're crazy. You should be doing the work if you have it, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm definitely fortunate to be able to do what we do. Didn't happen by accident, that's for sure.
No.
But the path has led to a great place so far.
That's so very cool. And the path that actually led you to 4 ladies working for you. And I hate pointing it out that it's ladies, because this is actually something was pointed out to me today that we wanted to bring up to you. So your question was, how do I make a good environment great? You just don't hear that from anybody. Men, women, nobody asks that question. So what do you think that you're doing that's good that you just want to completely improve upon? Like, it just sounds like you're completely dedicated to your work. I mean, you bring in apprentice, you groom them to be, you do amazing work. So clearly what you do is set in your work. So what do you want to improve upon?
My biggest thing is I just want to make sure that, because it's a really demanding job and I'm a really demanding person. I try to control it, but I'm very fussy. That's how I got here, by having standards that are higher than most, and always wanting to improve. It's never good enough. You're like, oh, I did a really good job. But it's funny, we do these projects and I sit back and I'm really proud of what we did as a team. But I can't help, like, half an hour later or an hour later, when I look at the picture again to go check for comments, I'm like, oh, like I wish this was better, or I wish we would have done that, or on the next one I want to try this. And so I really like to make sure the environment is the best that it can be, because it's demanding. I think that's a bit of a downside. It can be good, but it's a bit of a downside. So I want to make sure as much of the rest of the environment is an upside. And I'm pretty conscientious because I have 2 girls.
Right.
As my daughters, I have 2 girls, 2 boys. And my wife is a firecracker of a lady, so she's not afraid to tell me anything.
Right.
But having women here is unique. And so, throughout my whole career, I only ever, I think, worked with 1 or 2 women in industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it was always like very unorthodox. They came into the environment, they were a bit like a fish out of water. And so it always seemed like nobody ever considered what needs to be different, or what should be different to make it better. And so, like, we have separate bathrooms here. That was a big thing when I leased this place, that I really wanted, because I saw the future. I was like, I should have equal opportunities for both.
Right.
I don't think chicks want to share a bathroom with dudes. I just
No,
don't think that's ideal, right?
No.
But so, and I think we have a pretty open environment. Discussions can take all these crazy turns, which wouldn't happen without women, and like just the other day, the girls were fooling around and I came into work and there was a bra on my regulator. It was just like a joke, and I was like, that would only happen here. Like, I've never seen that before.
Right.
So I guess I feel like we're doing good, but
right.
I always strive to be great. And so, above like separate bathrooms and not being a terrible old-fashioned man, what else would happen in a perfect world for women? And like, the ladies that work for me are great, but of course I'm their boss. And so I think there's a little bit of reticence on their part to tell me the 100%. And so I thought, what a better way to learn than to reach out to a bunch of ladies that don't work for me and have nothing to lose by telling me the hard truth.
Aw, look at, you're just getting love all across the board, dude. Already making great every single day. Like, I'm telling you, when I put this out to like the public, there was not one negative thing about you. Like, I think it's SJ. Her,
Yep.
I think it's SJ. Did you see the comment about her father just absolutely?
Yes.
I was like, holy moly. And like the comments, like, I have stuff here and I'm not going to say who they're from. Nothing's bad, but like, we're going to keep that little anonymity there. Just because. But there's not one negative thing. I mean, if you want to improve, I think it's nice for other people with other businesses who have women in there to kind of just enlighten them. Like, hey, we don't want to be known necessarily to be different because we're women, but there are biological things that we want to be, we need our space, you know what I mean? So here,
Yeah.
with you saying, you kind of pointed out earlier, just the woman welder thing. Even myself, I don't want to be called the woman welder. You know what
Yes.
I mean? I'm a welder, period.com. And there are biological differences between us, but if I can weld the same as my counterpartner, I don't want to be known as the woman welder because you are then setting us apart from them. And then that makes like a angst between the two of us, like, oh, you're a man, you're a woman. No, we're both human and we both weld.
Yeah.
So you point that out, like, here's my women welder, or, you know, I get that all the time. This is one of our lady instructors. Why can't I just be the instructor? You know what I mean?
Yes.
Why does there have to be a distinct difference? I mean, is there a difference? No. I mean, maybe between the way we pee or something, but you know what I mean? But when you
Yeah.
say something like that, you're then making, there's like a wall between men and women, which we're trying to get equality here. So if you can just address this as just the welder, that's like the first thing when you said that, like, I just want to point that out. You know, I don't like to be called a woman welder. And I know it's the Welding Women Syndicate, but
Yes.
sometimes it's with a nod of like, yes, we are that, but we're just welders, you know? And, you know, to be just singled out like that, sometimes it's not, especially with men, you're like, oh, they're just women welders. Just like, I mean, if I can weld better than you, is it just a just? You know what I mean?
It totally isn't. Yes.
No,
And
no.
that's one thing I want to make sure we talk about today is because I did get some comments, and I've had them before, where it's like, we hired a guy part-time. He actually started like a couple weeks ago. He's doing Fridays only.
Right.
And he told one of his buddies, and it's kind of a small world around here, especially with what I do, because I'm relatively well known in my small little area because we're the only ones doing what I'm doing.
Sure.
And he told his buddy, and he was like, oh, I thought Chris only hired women. And I was like, that's so bad that that's the only reason you think that I have women here is because that's all I hire.
Right.
I hire on merit.
On merit and skill, talent. Can we just
And a lot of attitude. And I find in general, women have a much more open-minded, I'd like to learn and improve attitude, and not so much of this pounding the chest, I'm the best BS. Because I try to always be humble. I know I'm good at what I do, but I don't have to go around telling everybody that. It's okay to be good at what you do and just do it. Right. And so I don't want anybody working for me that doesn't have that same mentality. Because it's you know, somebody, if a customer comes in and meets somebody that's boisterous and arrogant, it looks bad on me.
Sure, of course.
If it doesn't meet the company, you know, motto, right? Like you just, and plus everybody that I hire is kind of that same attitude. And so they just wouldn't fit if they were like that.
Right.
And I just find that on average, women are much better at not being like that.
Jerks.
Basically, yeah. I mean, that's the blunt way to put it.
Right. I mean,
and they're really good at details,
sure.
Which is all we do here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's one of those things I used to say, it's a little bit one-sided is what we'll call it. But when I used to teach, a lot of the girls were really good at TIG, and it would get the guys' noses out of joint. Right. And I'd be like, listen, anybody that can do eyelashes in the morning and not poke themselves in the eyeball probably has better hand skills than you, who can't even like brush your teeth or shave, right?
This is so true. Well, it's funny because now that you point that out, I think 3/4 of the ladies, so that's 3 out of my 4, their beads in general are very small, very tight, very consistent, where the guys are a little bit more wild, and not all the way, because I have more than just you know, so I'm not singling them out, but generally it's just a more, not delicate, but intricate and more detail, and that's how it is. I never thought about that, like makeup.
Yeah, that's something guys are not.
If we wear makeup, you know.
Yeah, I mean, they might, but it's like on average, like women are good at doing their own makeup, and most of them don't look like a mess. And that's pretty detailed work. And I even see lots of them doing it in the car. So it's like, you can do that while driving.
That the other day driving, and I was impressed because there's no way I can.
Yeah.
No, it's a thing. Well, when it comes to TIG welding, also, multitasking, you know, like you're doing so many things at the same time, and just, we do that, no big deal. We talk to you and do our hair and pay the bills and take care of the baby and make dinner all the same time and not think twice about it. So that skill comes really easy to a lot of women, you know.
Yes. So yeah, it's one of those interesting things. Yeah.
Huh. All right, so let's see. We already talked about just normalizing being one of the welders, just not separating us men and women. So that's good. Something that was just pointed out to me earlier. How about words of encouragement? And that was, and maybe it's just a generalizing thing. Maybe not everybody needs it, but it was something somebody pointed out. Like if he's asking how to improve the workplace, perhaps women, maybe not everybody gets emotional that time of the month, but it could be nice just to give some words of affirmation like you're doing great or good job. And I know with even myself, I don't necessarily do that. And I have to think about it sometimes. Like maybe they
Yeah.
need that.
Yeah. That's something I've noticed I definitely have to work on because when I was in industry and I was a boss of just men, it's not like it was unwelcome,
Mm-hmm.
but it was not, I wouldn't consider it necessary.
Right.
But whereas I find it definitely helps here
Sure.
to give some positive feedback. You can't sugarcoat things. That's not what they want. But it's like when they do a good job or when they make an improvement, they like to know.
Yes.
Whereas guys are like, as long as you don't fire me, I'm good. It's a lot more like cut and dry, right?
Sure.
So yeah, there's definitely been a learning curve for me.
Sure. Well, and you have to kind of like learn on the fly because you keep increasing your crew of women. Like everybody is a little bit different. Not everybody applies. So
Yeah.
it's nice to just ask because sometimes you just don't think about. Obviously, you're not a woman, so
Yes.
asking period is very, very smart on your part.
Yeah.
Let's see. We talked. This is very important, and this is actually a huge discussion with a lot of my lady friends right now. And you heard he talked about it was the clean bathroom, our own bathroom. We do not normally stand up and urinate. So even in my own classroom, there is a men's and the women's, and you're more than welcome to go into the men's if you like, but I'm not sitting on that toilet. You know what I mean? Like it's just a nice, clean. And it's interesting because more and more women are coming into the workplace. And I have been to a shop where there wasn't even a place for us to go to the restroom. Like there was no doors, there was urinals and like we had to like have a girl outside. The one place that I had, she had to wait outside to make sure the guys didn't come in. And I was like, this is ridiculous, like,
oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awful, and just we're women. So if you want to bring us in, make sure that we're accounted for. Like make sure it's clean, make sure there's resources to take care of ourselves once a month. Like it is what it is. We're women. We're biologically different. You know what I mean? Those things are going to happen. So at least provide something that if there's an accident or if we need something like that, we're taken care of. So we are more productive. If we are freaking out over an accident once a month, we're not going to be doing a good job. We're going to be pissed
Yes.
off, go home. You know what I mean?
And I did have that happen here, and I did learn from it right away. We had that happen, and I told my wife, because she takes care of like like I said, she's a business manager. She takes care of a lot of purchasing and all that stuff. And I told her, I was like, what's necessary. I told her, talk to the ladies and figure out what we need to have on hand just in case. Because for the $25 it costs or whatever to have whatever we need to have to make their life more comfortable, I think that makes it a much better place to work. Just in case, right?
Right. Peace of mind. And it's
yes.
Because I actually failed my own ladies last weekend and I was like, oh my word, there was a situation. I have a predominantly female welding class and I failed you. Like I'm a woman and I didn't even think about like having just a small little basket in the girls' bathroom or just in case, some aspirin, wipes, feminine needs, whatever the situation calls. And you don't think about that because I've never had a welding class with all women. I provide my own things, but like, oh, now there's other women. You just don't think about that, so it was a learning lesson even on myself, and I'm a woman.
Yeah. I'm shocked that I didn't think of it earlier, but it's one of those things that I've always learned, by doing. Basically, I try to think ahead as much as I can, but it's like I've always been of the opinion. It's like, listen, even if you didn't know before, now you know, and the onus is on you. You have the knowledge. So what are you going to do about it? And so that's the way I look at like any mistakes that happen on the floor or, within personal relations at the company. So I always try to take that as a learning thing, right? Because it was really uncomfortable for the person that it happened to.
Of course.
And I was like, oh, wow, this is a big deal. Like I never even thought about this. And I don't want anybody to have to go through that again that works here. So.
Right. And
Yeah.
it's funny because even the smallest, simplest thing is it doesn't sound, probably sounds weird to you, but a mirror, like you
Yeah.
never know what's going to happen. We want to make sure that we don't have holes in our behind, like we
Yeah.
like, I don't know, it's just a necessity, it's not necessarily for us to check our makeup. It's just in case, like we want to be provided for. If there's going to be a policy that you want women in the workplace, provide for them. We're not asking for, any special, like, foods or coffee. That'd be nice. But you know what I mean? Like, you're going to be there from 8 o'clock till 4 o'clock in the day, or however, 10, 12, 18 hours. You're going to be there all day. You may not have the opportunity to leave, so take care of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Eliza made a good point here. That's one thing that it's not always the case, but it's one thing that I've learned is that um, women are just generally smaller.
Right.
And so when we don't do a ton of heavy lifting here because most of it's like titanium exhaust, which weighs like between 8 and 15 pounds. It's not the end of the world. But
Okay.
like we
Right.
use extra high pressure bottles, so they're almost twice the thickness. And
Right.
so those are really heavy. And so you have to accommodate that a little bit. And so you have to think about, ways to make it easier. And it's funny because as a guy, you would just, destroy your body over the years and never think about making it easier.
Right.
And then you have to think about women and you do some things that make life easier. And you're like, why didn't I do this for myself?
Right.
Yeah, like
Right.
just because I had this idiotic, like I'm strong BS going on, I didn't think to not try to,
Let's
so
not
that's been a
protect
big
our backs
benefit.
for 10 more years. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's been a big benefit. You think at first you're like, oh, this is kind of inconvenient. And then you fix it and you're like, oh, well, I should have done this anyways. Everybody wins, right? Yeah. So all these little things, and that's part of the really big bonuses of having women on staff is all the reasons that you don't realize it's going to be great. Yeah.
It's a little bit easier. I mean, it's not always the case because, like, I'm like man size.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
protecting my back, that is always a nice thing. Like, I don't care what size you are. Let's work smarter, not harder. Because you want to be able to weld for 10, 20, 30 more years. You know what I mean? So it's very. Oh, look at this one. Another one. Eliza's on it with these. She's talking about an open door policy, taking care of the bullies immediately. I don't know how that works. All women in, so one could bully the other, but that's another situation. Who is going to advocate for your ladies if there comes a situation where you have bullying within the workplace? Is it going to be he said, she said? Is it going to be a woman to advocate for the women? Is it going to be a man to advocate for the man?
I
How do
had
you
that
address
happen.
that situation?
I had that happen 5 years ago.
Really?
And I didn't actually, from my instructing days, because when I was instructing towards the end, I had some classes that had between 4 and 5 girls in the class.
Oh, wow.
And so I started to like adapt quite a bit and start to, you start to think about them less differently. And so then you just start thinking about, okay, I don't care who's on either side of this argument, who's right.
Right.
It doesn't matter to me what sex you are. It's like, who's being unreasonable?
Right.
And so when this situation come up, I looked at it very clearly like that, and I handled it. And it was bad. It was a bad situation for the lady, but I rectified it. But not because she was a lady, but because the wrong thing was happening. And so, yeah, I don't put up with any bullying at all. It doesn't matter who it is. That's not a good work environment ever. And that situation taught me that. After that, I started caring a lot more about how the person treats other people and what their attitude is. Because I'm in I think, a pretty lucky position that I have some skills. Not only do I have some skills, but somebody taught me the skills to teach skills.
Yes.
So my kind of motto is, do you fit in the team? Can you learn? Do you want to learn? Because if anybody can teach you, I think I can. So I can teach you the skills, but I can't really teach you attitude.
Right.
So I kind of pick people that are going to make a good team player and build them up from there when needed. Sam came as a journeyman. Kara came as a journeyman. Natasha just recently came back as a journeyman. So these people have good skills. They still need to get better, but they're not they're not an apprentice.
Right.
So,
Now, do they actively seek you out because they know that you have a predominantly female welding crew?
Not these ones so far, but we have had situations like we have a Greg's down the street. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a big provider of like bolts and all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
It's a big deal up here in Canada. They're really convenient. They're just down the street, and we go there all the time. And Megan was there, and there's a lady working there, and she was saying how terrible she got treated at her work, and if we were hiring, because her work environment is bad because it's predominantly men, and they just aren't good about it.
Right.
And so that I could see it's happening a little bit where they're like, oh, well, you work there. You don't hate your job. It must be a good place to work. Can I come and work there?
Right.
Which is kind of sad. It made me a little bit sad inside because I was like, man, it sucks that it's not good for everybody like I try to make it here. But at the same time, I was like, well, at least there is one place.
Yeah, we definitely need more of your like thought process over here because that just doesn't happen. It completely blows my mind that you think the way that you do. You just don't see it too often. So mad respect to you on that because I mean all the like I'm looking at the ladies like my tops right now, Eliza and Vero and Christina, like we don't see that. We've never seen it, you know, so it's just amazing that you're so welcoming and that you have the ability to teach that people just like seek you out. Like I appreciate that, you know, especially as a woman, because we are the anomaly and we don't necessarily want to be known for that. We want to be known for our talents. But somebody who is open-minded and welcome to feedback, you know, we're going to seek you out.
Yeah, that's good. That's what I would like. I always want to improve, whether it's welding or just being a better boss. It's important to me. I have
Sure.
pride. It's not just because I'm nice. It's because I want to do good, right?
Right.
And doing good is also doing good by other people, right?
Well, and you do sick work too, so who wouldn't want to work with you?
Yeah, well, that's good. I'm hopefully not terrible to get along with either. So it's like if you even if you don't stay, if you come, you know, be a part of I think what is a relatively fun team,
Sure.
Learn some things, and keep going on with your career. Everybody wins, right?
Right. So Eliza just pointed out right now, she said feedback, like I was saying. What about doing something quarterly, you know, doing it anonymously through your employers or employees, like asking them like you're asking us, like, how could I improve upon that? But keeping anonymous because maybe somebody's shy or maybe they think that, you know, they're going to hurt your feelings or whatever the situation. Maybe that's an option to actually get feedback from them in the shop.
So how do you mean anonymously?
You know, like having like little like voting or you know like little cards that they could submit. You
Okay. Yeah, okay. That
so
would be
you don't have
cool.
to put your name. I
Like a
have,
suggestion box, basically.
right. But do
Yeah,
it for,
okay.
I don't know if you necessarily want to have that every single day, but you know, put something out, email or however you contact your peoples. You know, after your meeting, like we're gonna do an anonymous a poll or suggestion box, whatever. You know, once every 3 months, just to tell me how I'm doing, how we can improve, you know, let you know how good you're doing. You know, maybe you need that too. Who knows?
That's a great idea. I wrote it down.
Oh, hey, see that, Eliza? Great work, girl.
Yeah, see, I'm taking notes because I'm like, that's the whole reason I wanted to do this.
We're like bathrooms and feedback. We need this. Like, it's very important. But, you know, I think kind of in my own situation, I just want someone who's going to advocate for me. You know, so sometimes I feel like I am just kind of out there on my own, being the instructor. And you know, like the people that I can go to, I mean, I guess they acknowledge me, but I just don't feel like it. You know, like acknowledgement is very important, you know, so to have someone who's going to not only answer the email but hear you,
Yeah.
acknowledge you, and maybe try to figure out, you know, an issue actively, you know, not just when it's convenient for them. You want
Yes.
to be valued in your workplace, definitely, you know. As an instructor, you do a lot, and just a little bit of credit here and there goes a long way.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Apparently, you guys have top-notch bathrooms, so great work on that.
Yeah.
I am so going to be coming work there. Love up for this conversation. I know. See, the ladies are like so stoked that you are actually like, tell me what I can do. This is
Yeah.
well, and I've had another one. Okay. Do you read that one? I like that he's not stuttering and stammering about women care. I mean, come on now. You have two girls. Your wife is there in the office, and you have four ladies that work for you. So at this point, really, what can surprise you? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I've watched all 4 births, so there isn't a lot that's going
oh
to surprise me. Yeah,
no, no, there's nothing that's going to surprise you at this point. So,
no.
oh, cranes and other things to make lifting easier. He's not backing away or trying to change the subject. Very manly of him. No, I mean he like seriously, you guys. So okay, let me. I don't know who's watching right now, but he actually asked us during I think it was with Athena 3 or 4 weeks ago or 2 or 3 weeks ago, however it's been a minute. But you asked like how could I make my good workplace better? You know, and I don't know if that's verbatim, but you wanted to have what you think is a good workplace, but you want it to be great. So we're trying to help you achieve greatness with your ladies there, and not just for the ladies, but for whomever works for you. And the fact that you're open to this conversation and having all this feedback from all different all over the country, like some people want donuts, some people want feminine care, some people just want to be freaking acknowledged. Like it helps to actually ask that question. But the fact that most people want to ask the question because of what you said, ego, you know? So kudos to you. We do appreciate this.
I find in my career, too many people either never were in the position of being an employee or even like a new hire, like a greenhorn, basically is what I used to call. I started by sweeping the floor when I was 12 years old and working on the iron worker. And I was 100% a greenhorn. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes and I had so much learning to do.
Right.
But I think too many people forget, like on a hot day in the summer, I'll, just to try and keep the attitude better, happier. I'll just give the credit card to one of them and ask them to go get us like Jogo Juice or whatever, like
right.
Just little things like that. It doesn't cost very much money, but it's the thought.
Yeah.
And it's like, why not just enjoy a 15-minute coffee break with something better than a water or a coffee or, like it's just those little things. And so that's what I always want to be trying to improve and making better so that everybody's happy to be here so that while they're here, they're enjoying it. And naturally, as a business owner, if your employees are enjoying their time here, they're probably going to do a better job. Even if they don't work faster or harder, right. They're going to be more conscientious, more honest. They'll put more effort in. They'll put more focus in. And that's really kind of what I'm after is like more focus to do better job on the details, right?
Yeah.
Because the details are hard. I mean, it's like, throughout my career, all these levels of things that we were doing, like I've always been bored easily. After I've done something 10,000 times, I'm like, as fast as I can be, I can't do it any better. What do I do now? And my mind wanders.
Right.
So that's how I landed here because I couldn't find this. So I made it because I was like, what can I do to challenge myself every single day? Basically to make it difficult all the time. That's the terrible way to put it. And so I know it's difficult and I know it takes a lot of focus. So it's like if you're enjoying your job, you're way more likely to like dig deep and get those extra things, right? That we all can like kick ass here, basically.
Well, even the fact, even beyond the drink to go buy it, the fact that you gave them the card, that you trust them that much with that card, that means more to me. Like you trust me, I'm gonna work extra hard for you because you have that trust for me. You know what I mean? Like yeah. I care less about the freaking drink. The fact that you would actually give me that and trust me enough to go and take care. I mean, that's important, like you never know what the heck somebody's going to do. You really don't. You almost don't know anybody, but that you trust your employees that much that you.
Yeah, one of my friends asked me that the other day. I was talking about, I had worked really late, so I came in late. But of course, everybody here we work 8 to 6:30, 4 10s. And then we're busy right now. So once a month we work 5 10s.
Oh, nice.
But I had mentioned that I had worked quite late. So I came in late at 9 o'clock. And he was like, well, who has the key to get in? And I'm like, everybody has a key. Like, everybody that works here has a key. And he's like, oh, that's different. And I was like,
really? Wow.
And I was like, yeah, well, if I didn't trust them to have a key to the building, they wouldn't be working for me. I'm sorry.
Right.
But yeah, everybody here has a key.
I hope everybody's listening to this. Like, I know people are going to be listening to this. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but like lots of places I worked at, yeah, he's right. There was only a couple of people that they had a key.
Right.
It never even dawned on me. But when we moved into here, I got everybody a key right away. It just because my kind of motto is also like, I'd like you to be here in the core hours, but I mean, if you want to come at 7 or 6 and leave early, or if you want to come at 9 or 10 and leave late, I don't really care as long as the work gets done.
Right.
You know, and as long as you've been here long enough that I can trust you, that you have a handle on doing things by yourself, if there's nobody else here to help you or whatever, that's fine. And I think that freedom helps a lot too, because everybody has different lives. You know, like one of the ladies that works for me, she has 4 kids like I do. So, and that's a lot going on, right? And her husband works out of town some weeks. And so it's like, I realize she has lots on her plate. And then other people have, you know, like Sam is like an avid mountain biker. So, you know, he puts a real premium on time in the summer. So he doesn't really like to work a ton of hours in the summer, but he's more than happy to work hours in the winter. So it's like, yeah, just work around. You just kind of got to get the work done.
Right.
Yeah.
And is Sam your only male welder aside from yourself?
Yes, for the moment, yeah. Evan just started part-time on Fridays, but yeah. So.
And Sam and Evan, I'm not discounting you at all, but it is Welding Women's Syndicate. So I'm just advocating for the ladies, but great work.
Yeah, we were talking about this at lunchtime today, how, you know, it is mostly women. Like on days when my wife's here, there's like 5 women and 2 men.
Right.
And it's like, you know, I looked at Sam and I was like, don't worry, you weren't the diversity hire.
Yes, he was. No. I'm sorry. Look, I've been on that other end, so I love that.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny because some people might actually think that, right? Like he hired one guy just so it wasn't all women, right? Yeah.
That's so interesting seeing it from that perspective. Like, I love that. You guys, I know everybody's laughing at that. That was mint right there. I needed that. We don't see it from that level, so that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
No, it's talent, I'm sure. You know what I mean? Like, that's very cool. So
yeah, he's a very humble, nice young man, and that's what we want here.
See, that's perfect. You're finding people perfect for your company. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So when you're hiring, do you hire out of the college or the university that you were teaching out of, or how does that work?
Generally, yeah, I've hired a few out of there, and it's nice because I'll get a call or a text or a message saying, you know, there's somebody special. And that's generally, this is a bit of a secret, it might not be if they're watching, but then I go in for a demonstration, like just out of the blue, right? Oh, I'll come and talk to the class and we'll talk about the cool stuff that I do. But what it really does is it allows me to see them in a relaxed environment where they're actually not aware of the interview that they're taking.
Oops, you might not want to give them that one up.
Yeah. So it gives me a really good chance to see them in their natural environment where they're not nervous, not any more nervous that I'm there, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the girls who used to work for me, she moved away to another province, fell in love with a guy and wanted to move out there. Just too bad. She was fantastic, but that's how I got her. I went and talked to her class, and then it's funny because I came back from that and I told my wife, I was like, there was a couple of kids in that class that seemed really interested in what I had to say. And I told her I'd be shocked if I didn't get a message or something from one of them saying, you know, maybe you don't hire greenhorns, but is there any chance? And sure enough, like a month and a half later, she messaged me and was like, hey, you know, I really enjoyed when you came to the class and all this stuff. And of course, she was one of the reasons I had gone in the first place.
Oh, wow.
Was to see her in this environment. So it works. It can really work. And then she came for a proper interview after that.
Sure. Now, do you have a working relationship with all the local schools, or is it just like one in particular? I don't know how that works.
That particular school, because it's the main one here, you have to travel an hour and a half or 2 hours in some directions to get to some of the other tech colleges.
Yeah.
But when I was an instructor, I used to go around and talk to the high schools to try and get more interest in welding, because around here, welding is mostly like pipelines and support for the oil and gas. And that doesn't excite a lot of people unless you happen to have a passion for that or you're really just in it for the money.
Sure.
So I used to go around and talk about the stuff I was doing on the side with all my racing friends, which was automotive type. Because it's a lot more exciting for kids, especially if you're into cars, to be like, oh, you can make an exhaust, you can make a turbo manifold, you can do an intake, we could do a roll cage. Welding isn't just welding on a pipeline or welding a skid, right?
Right.
So I used to go around and talk at high schools. And it's funny, I'm still friends with some of the teachers that I used to go and connect with at these high schools that are in like the RAP program, which is a registered apprentice program. So you can start your apprenticeship while you're in high school through some of the welding curriculums and stuff. So I have to do a Zoom call with one next week that's a little ways away. He reached out through Instagram, actually, one of the teachers, and was like, "Hey, didn't realize you were in Alberta. I'd love to do a Zoom call to try and inspire our kids." And I'm like, I'm all for it.
That is so neat.
Yeah, that was like the best part about instructing for me. I'm sure it's the same with you,
Yes.
is when you see them get that light bulb moment when they finally get like the puddle, or when they're cutting with a torch, and these, it's those moments that make it all worthwhile. The ones that really hurt me inside was when I was teaching them something that wasn't in the curriculum to try and spread some knowledge that I had gained, and then the hand would go up and be like, "Is this on the test?" And it's like, no, but I'm trying to make you a better tradesperson. Like, it's not just all about the test. Like, you guys could read
Right.
the books and pass the test. I'm here to try and expand
Right.
on those things, right? So that always bugged me a little bit, because I'm pretty passionate about welding. And when somebody is basically like, "Cool story, but do we have to know this?" That's basically what that means,
Yeah.
right? So that bugged me a
Hear
little
that
bit.
on occasion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that
Yeah.
hurts. Well, there's that also, even after you have gone through the schools, talk to the students, and maybe they don't necessarily go through you, but they remember you and they come back and they're like, "Hey, I know I didn't work with you and I didn't go to your class, but you were the reason why I got into it. You sparked something in me and I decided to take a class, and thank you." Like, it's those moments. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I see a question here from Eliza.
Oh,
It says, "Can you let us know what is a good rule of thumb for interviews? You're kind of in an odd position when it comes to interview attire. Any recommendations? Ready to work?" That's
yeah.
a great question, because I've been on both sides of that. One of my customers had a daughter that wanted to maybe come and work for the summer,
Yes.
and she was an art student, I think, for before, but then she was going into engineering, and I was like, "Wow, this is a sharp lady. Like, if she wants to come and do welding,
Right.
should be great." But she showed up looking very not appropriate for welding.
Uh-oh.
And I was like, there's no polite way to say it, but she looked great, but it wasn't appropriate for the job. And
Right.
so I was like, that really deterred me from, hiring her, basically, because I was like, at that point, it really puts you in a bad position, because you're like, I mean, we've all worked around guys. In my experience anyways, if a really pretty girl comes in, the guys just fall all over her and do all the work for her.
Eliza and I were just talking about this.
Nobody wants to talk about this stuff, but that's just the honest truth.
No, that's the honest truth.
Yeah, and so because men are very simple animals, right? We just are. So
That's very true. It's very
I saw that, and my first impression was trouble. I was like, this is not good for my company.
right.
And so it's very important that you dress for the work. And it doesn't mean like, big clunky work boots and Carhartts and like 19 layers, like, because I used to do what they used to call rail damage. So we would wear a lot of protection because we would do a lot of gouging and like heavy cutting. But ready to work, and I tell people, no matter what, if you want to come for an interview, you should always be ready to weld.
I agree.
If you're handing over a resume, there better be a hood in the truck.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to be ready. I'm really good at that. I put people on the spot.
Yes.
Because a lot of what we do here is really challenging. It can be new for a lot of people, even if they've got great experience. So it's like, there's no better way to test somebody than to put them on the spot during the welding test.
Yes.
Make them do a really difficult joint or a really difficult fit up, and I make them do the prep themselves to see how they handle themselves around equipment like sanders.
Yes.
So, and when I did interviews to hire in 2020, just before COVID came, that's what I was doing. I was interviewing people, we went through like 40 or 50 resumes, picked out 10 people that had the best resumes and brought them in for interviews. And I put everyone on a different spot, different weld prep, different materials, so that they could never talk to each other and try to ace the test, right?
Right.
Because I'm a little bit evil and I just figure this stuff out.
I don't think you're anything evil. I just don't believe that. Sorry. But that's true. It's funny because we were just talking about there's a huge discussion about what we should be wearing. And I always tell everybody, if you're going to be going for a welding job, dress like you're going to be welding. You never know. Like I rarely leave anywhere without wearing steel toes. It's very rare. Like today I went somewhere and it was something. I can't even say it right now. Sorry, guys. But I was in steel toes ready to weld just in case. You never know. You're going to go for a welding job? Look at, so are you hiring?
Yeah.
You prepare yourself. Don't come in looking cute with the dress. Like, are you going to weld in that dress? Are you trying to seduce your employer? Like, come on now. We want to be known for our skills, not for, you know what I mean?
Yes.
So,
Yep.
and you're saying that, like you just said, you're trouble.
It
You're gorgeous.
matters.
You know,
Yep.
like, it is what it is.
Yep.
Men are simple creatures. It is what it is.
For better and for worse, right?
Sure. No, we
Women use it to their advantage for sure, but
oh,
there's times where it's you have to predict that trouble. Yeah.
everybody loves you right now, Chris. I'm telling you. God, I need you as a boss. This is leadership language right here. So are you hiring? Like, you have all the ladies loving you right now. I'm just looking like, sorry, I'm just like completely blown away by like how positive the reinforcement is right now. That my pun is really made. Oh God. Okay, that was a lies already. We were talked about that. So everybody, so if we're gonna go for welding tests or welding interviews, prepare for the job. Wear your steel toes.
Yeah.
Bring your hood. Cover up. You know, like you're gonna be out there in the shop or in the field, whatever it
Yeah.
is. Chris is one cool dude. Oh my God, these people love you, Chris. I so appreciate this conversation. And it's funny because we don't know that is it's even a needed conversation until you said it. And I'm a woman. Like
Yeah,
I
this is really cool. This is good feedback, and yeah, like I've got a nice little list here of things that I can work to improve on, and I just really wanted to make sure that everybody knew that I'm not hiring women just because they're women.
sure.
That's really important to me, and I think if more people thought about the benefits, and of course, it just depends on what you're doing. I mean, there are definitely welding type jobs that are more suited to men. Just if it's super rough and tumble, that's probably a better environment for men in particular. But this happens to be a shop that's really does favor women,
Sure.
like the skills and the things that women bring to the table. Even though I think I'm open minded, I think the skill set that's required here definitely caters more to the people that are detail orientated. And so there's lots of shops I think that have never thought about the fact that there might be better options. And
I mean, Kamana, you basically just set the precedence right now. Like, look at your work. Your work speaks for you. Look at you're well known in the industry. Like people, how about we just make him like the token guy right now? Like it is, there are definitely advantages for hiring women, not just women, just because they're women, but the talent alone. But I mean, small hands, small beads. It's just, it's kind of, that's just the way it is, you know? Like,
yes, yeah, Kara was mentioning that as an advantage. Like we don't do a ton of work, actual work on the cars, like just what's necessary to build things or prototype stuff. But there has been times where like Kara's a really dainty lady, and so her hands fit places that mine don't. It's not like I'm some monster of a man. I'm
right,
average, but it's like that your hand width, if it's an inch or a half an inch narrower, and it can actually fit. I mean, that could be the difference between getting in there and not. And
right.
so it's these little things that you don't even think about. And then you're like, oh shit, well, her hands are smaller. Maybe she can actually click the wrench or the ratchet if she can get her arm in there, right? So there's so many benefits that you just don't think of. And it's because women are generally not in the industry. So you just don't know what you're missing
Right.
until you have it, right?
Well, and that's women too. I don't think women necessarily know that there's a different side. It doesn't always have to be that rough and tumble or the, super dirty work. It's not always like that. There's
That's right.
different niche welding jobs out there. That's you only see what you see because that's what's out there. But women, they don't necessarily have to get dirty. You don't necessarily have to be, uh, doing pipe welding or structural welding. There's so many different aspects of welding, and it's nice that you display in such a cool and interesting way. And the fact that it's predominantly female just blows my mind. You just don't see it.
Yeah,
And
no, it is unusual.
there's like, I know you guys are just welders. That's just the way it works. But
Yeah.
it's interesting because once you have like a predominantly anything, male or woman, or man or woman, I have had women who just seek me out. They don't even care. They could probably like, I could be like an asshole of a teacher and they're like, well, you're a woman, so we wanted you. And I was like, well, why? What's the whole point? But because they had such a poor experience in the other way, they're just seeking someone out that actually like readily displayed what they wanted. You know, well, she's a woman and she's a welder. We're going to just try it out. So
Yeah.
the fact that you took the chance and it worked out really well for you, people are seeking you out actively. So that's the way it's working out for you right now.
Yes. There is some like downsides in the beginning. Like for instance, one of the other girls that helped me out early when I was just doing it on the side in the garage, my mom was staying with us, and my mom is so not trustworthy.
Uh-oh.
And I remember we were sitting at the table welding, and I looked up, and there's my mom looking out the window.
Oh.
Like, you know, the assumption, right?
Right.
It's like there's, yeah. And it's funny because when Natasha first worked for me, she was maybe 20, and I was in my late 30s, and so we would, you know, I would be showing her like some of the runs that we do, like if we would go to the tool place or the gas supplier, and you could see the look in people's eyes where they're confused, right? It's like nobody ever would think first that she was working with me. They were like, is this his daughter or his girlfriend?
Man, we got to change that mentality.
Yeah, and it got really annoying. It's like I could see people looking at us, and it's like, dude, like I'm not sleeping with her. She works with me.
Right.
And it's not my daughter. Like, there is a place for women in this work.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's getting better, but 10 years ago, it was totally different.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. That's funny.
And not just guys, by the way.
I know.
Lots of judgy looks from women.
I have actually had the worst pushback from other women.
Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah. Strangely, but I can pretty much hold my own with the dudes. But with the women, it's interesting.
That's one thing I was honestly a little bit scared about because, you know, my wife was a business analyst for the city of Calgary. So she was in like a predominantly female big office environment. And she always complained about how catty it can get.
Yes.
And I was worried. I was like, man, if we end up with, you know, multiple females, is that going to happen here? But of course, it's still just a people thing.
Sure.
If you hire good people, that stuff doesn't happen. Just like, you know, if there's been shitty shop environments I've been at where it's like a sausage fest, as they call it. But it's mostly just because the guys are assholes, not because it's just guys.
Right.
So it's still just a people problem. So yeah, I've had people ask me that before. Does it get super catty? And I'm like, no, they're all great people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quality control, very important.
Yeah, and it's a lot easier to do it on the way in.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I was just going to say some women are shitty. Oh, sorry. I guess I shouldn't have said that out loud. Yes. Okay, so somebody, blah, blah, blah. There are women out there who want the rough and tumble. Yes. Can we talk about how to train? What are the expectations in your shop? Training wise, what do you guys go through? What do you train into? Like, what are they apprentice into? We're very curious about your shop. We want to talk tech. So
whenever I hire somebody, especially if they're green or new, I tell them that this isn't like a regular welding apprenticeship in Alberta is 3 years. So you sign up, you work for roughly a year, then you go to school for 2 months, then you work another year, then you go to school for 2 months, work another year, go to school for 2 months. So after 3 years, you can have your journeyman if it all works out, timing wise. But I tell them, like, that's just your license to start learning, basically. I tell them, like, you have to think about this more like a samurai sword apprenticeship, where it's like, it's going to take you 5 to 7 years until you're actually able to complete all of the welds that we do here. Because not only do you have to get the basics of welding, but then I have to teach you more advanced metallurgy about the different kinds of titanium and the different kinds of nickel and dissimilar metals and stuff like that, specific to what we do. And it's quite a different world, right? So I tell them, like, you have to be patient. Like, you're going to start very slow. Right. Because how can I trust you to build a McLaren exhaust if I can't see that you can cut something and sand it square?
Right.
Or prep it and not, you know, have the carbide burr bounce around, you know, like, so it's a really slow, patient testing apprenticeship. And I tell them that all up front so there's no surprises, because I'm like, listen, if you really want to work here, you have to know that you're going to be at the saw for like 4 months until I see what I want to see there. And you're going to be in the buffing room polishing, and you're going to be, you know, sharpening tungsten until I see you can do it perfect, because it's all about building these little skills. And I get all kinds of flack for not having like a tungsten sharpener. And I'm like, that's great. And it would be faster, but it's a skill builder.
Yeah.
If you can sharpen tungsten really, really well, then some of the other things that we do, like it all comes back to hand skills.
Yes.
So I'm a little bit old fashioned in that way, where I really take a, it's the long game.
Interesting. Now, do you get, just because the way your crew is set up, it's predominantly female, do you get any blowback from your cohorts? You know, other businesses or other people around you?
No, and I don't know if that's just because
You don't hear it.
I don't hear it, or they know it's incorrect to say, I guess. So much has changed in the last 10 years. I don't know if they're just holding back, or if they really don't care. As long as the work gets done and it's quality, they just see that, right?
Yeah.
Which would be the best situation.
Yes. I love that. You know, it's funny. Sometimes I just choose not to hear things because, you know, people, sometimes I think people are only happy when they can cause chaos or say something stupid because they're just not happy with themselves. So I
Hmm.
not to hear a lot of things because why waste my time on somebody like that or a business like that? You know, I don't interact with businesses I don't have respect with, or, you know, if there's
Yeah.
something that you're going to say something inappropriate about me, what's the basis for that? Because, you know, come on now. I just base it on what I do. 98% pass rate. My students all love me. They're all well versed in this, that, and the other. So you just have to think, I guess, the basis for, you know, what they're saying, the basis for comparison. Who's saying what? You don't hear it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a pretty long. It's a very skills based advancement. Once I see what I need to see out of you on A, then I move you to B to C. So yeah, and I'm pretty fussy. Like
Yeah.
we try to fit most of our pieces within a millimeter.
Mm. Wow.
So because I've learned over time that it's like stacking of tolerances. If you're sloppy in the beginning, it's like building a house, right? If the foundation's junk, how are you going to build a good roof?
Right. That's
So
just,
it's like if you build those skills like a house, then I find it goes a lot better.
yes, that's very smart.
So being like super anal and specific right from the get-go builds that attitude as they learn, where they're already, once you've told them to resharpen 30 tungsten because it's off by, a fraction of a degree, and it's really important that it be accurate, then they're not surprised when you ask them that this has to be right. Like our total tolerance on this whole piece might be 3 millimeters. So, we have to stay super tight. And
Yeah.
it's amazing how you can train your eyes.
Hmm.
Like I always used to laugh because the old guys in the shops would be like, "Oh, I can see the center of that piece of pipe within an inch or whatever,"
Right.
and they really could.
Yeah.
Like they would strap it, and you're like, "How do you get there?" And then I'm this much further in, and it's funny because my apprentices are like, I can see the difference between an 8 millimeter and a 5/16 bolt just by looking at it,
You can.
and the difference in there is like thousands
Right.
in the pitch of the thread, but I can see it. It's just you just train your eyes. If you care enough to pay attention, you can train yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
That's interesting. I guess you don't think about that stuff until you talk about it. Interesting.
yeah. And so the first days at the shop for people are generally pretty tough
Sure.
because I like to try and make them almost as bad as it can be right off the get-go. And so like Megan was laughing because her first day was to start organizing our bolt bin.
Ah, come on.
But it was a test and she passed because she never asked me to quit or change or do I have to do this all day. She just kept at it. And that perseverance and that patience is exactly what we need here. And so that's generally what I do because I don't want to wait 6 months to find out that they're not the right person to work here.
Yeah.
So I'm quite persistent about making it for sure the first week there has to be a day in there that's very testing. And it's not like, cracking the whip and dragging cars across the parking lot. It's not that kind of thing. It's about perseverance and patience. Do they have what it takes?
Right.
Yeah.
So have you had a huge dropout for like the first week?
No.
Come in, or but it seems like you handpick for the most part.
Yes, I have had to let, I think, 4 people go over all the years. And it's funny because for whatever reason, it's just this weird coincidence. It was not until the 3rd person where I was like, holy smokes, it's Toolbox Tuesday. And I used to call it that because I would roll the toolbox out to the front and be like, this is it, you're done, right?
Right.
But it just happened to be on Tuesday, so that's the big joke around here. When people would be like, how are things going? Like on Monday, and they're like, you're not going to fire me tomorrow, are you? Because it's Tuesday.
That stings.
But
Oh,
But besides that, it's been pretty good. There have been people that came highly recommended and everything, but they just didn't have what it takes. And because I'm a tiny bit of a softie and I have a lot of faith in people, I'm like, okay, well, it must be me. I'll try this other thing. Let's try them at this. Let's try them at this. Let's try them at this. And then it's like, well, okay, it's not me.
that's
They
the instructor in you.
they just can't do it, right? So then I have to let them go, and it's never pleasant. I mean, anybody that's ever had to do something like that, it sucks. But luckily, it hasn't been a lot because I try to filter them up front.
How do you separate the businessman from the instructor, though?
It's tough because they really don't get along 100%. Because the instructor is like, you keep trying and keep trying and keep trying and keep trying and try to get them to pass that test.
Yes.
But that's not always the best way to run a business because at some point you have to call the ball, is what I say. It's like, and I ran into this with some students too, where I had to have a really frank discussion with them and be like, listen, this is really difficult for you. This might not be for you. And if you don't make it past the test, you have to really seriously consider if this is what you want to do. And it sucks to have to do it, but I felt I owed it to a couple where it's like, it was so obvious and they just couldn't see it. It's like, listen, everybody in the class, after I've given them 4 or 5 demos, can like get on with this task. And I've been in here for 15 demos with you. And I've even, had some other instructors in because I'm like, it must be me, right? Sure. It must be me. I've tried something else and it's like, it's just not working. So it's shitty because the apprenticeship, you have to get 70% to pass, which I think is really important. Like knowing half of the trade is not really acceptable.
Sure.
So it's like you have to have 70%, and it's tough because some people get like 65%, and it's heartbreaking a little bit. But at the same time, it's like, well, the standard is there for a reason, and it sucks when you're under the standard, but that's the whole reason it exists.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I've had that conversation a couple of times. Like, you may want to stick with your day job, buddy.
Yeah.
It's rough. You don't want to have that conversation, but you're doing them an injustice by giving them false hope. So
yes, because especially if it's not obvious to them, like if you can see that they haven't figured this out for themselves, that you're like, okay, they need help. Like somebody has to tell them the truth,
right?
And just open their eyes to the fact that it's not going well because maybe it's just not for you. Right. Not everybody can weld. I mean, it's not rocket science. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it is a thing, and lots of people. People fit into certain skills and areas and stuff, and sometimes it's just not for them. And it just depends on how they get there. Like we have a pre-apprenticeship program at the college where you basically buy your way into the apprenticeship. You can't get a job. So you can buy in and like start your schooling. You don't get the hours, but then at least you've done the schooling. And so if somebody wants to hire you, you have a better starting point than somebody that's just walking off the street. And some of those are like literally getting kicked off the couch because welding has such a terrible reputation that they're like, oh, just go try welding if you can't do anything else. And so it's like some of those kids end up being decent welders, but other ones, it's just like, it's one of the things that they never wanted to do, but they're doing it just to try it.
Right.
And the attrition is pretty bad. Like I've gone and spoke at some of those and like, 10 weeks in, 3/4 of the class is there. That's it. So it can happen. It's not for everybody.
No, it definitely is not. But Veta was just saying right now, it does take some people longer, yes, but maybe that program is not for you. Like there is other places that you can go, just get more schooling. It's just, he's just specifically talking about his apprenticeship, not you, Veta, we promise, because you're the badass now. But it's true, this Lisa on here, those are tough conversations. She's another instructor as well. But they are important. I think it's true. We are doing them an injustice if we give them some type of false hope. Like, you're a badass. I don't sugarcoat anything. If it doesn't look good, I'm not going to tell you it looks good. I'm going to tell you, don't come back to me until it looks good. And then I'm going to help you diagnose it. And then, we may have that conversation. Maybe this is not for you. Or maybe you want to take another class because maybe my teaching style is not necessarily working for you. Just like you said, bring in another instructor. That's the situation. Let's see. We need this in our welding classes because we don't get the full scope of the jobs, especially the fab and finish side. Yes. Oh my God, everybody's going on the tech side now. Hold on. Can you see this popping up? There's a whole bunch of different stuff coming up now. Sharpening tungsten. Oh, what else do you do to hone hand skills?
Hand sanding, polishing. What else do we do for hand skills? It's a really tough place to learn, that's for sure. That's one thing I've learned is because everything is such a high quality that, like building like shop projects and stuff is the only place where they can start. And some of the apprentices get such a hard time on the internet because, they post a picture on Instagram and everybody's like, oh, I could do better with my eyes closed or whatever. And it's like, yeah, but you started somewhere. And this is a difficult place to start at because
Right.
the good enough thing is like, so it's a tricky place to be green at for sure because it's going to be a while before you're able to do anything actually productive.
I was just gonna ask. So when do they actually get to have their hands on a McLaren? Like,
Well, like
hey, like,
SJ's
can I
been
do it
here.
now?
SJ's been here since October,
Uh-huh.
and she's been doing welding like projects and making things and polishing and tungsten and cutting. And I had her maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago start tacking stuff.
Yes, good job. I bet she's stoked. And how is she doing?
Good. And it's very difficult because, one of the things she had to tack was like really thin wall Inconel,
Okay.
and she blew some holes and stuff, and I had to deal with it. But that's all part of the learning process. I mean, I didn't go in there blindfolded. I knew that this was a chance,
Right.
but we had the time, and
Well,
it's part of learning.
Full apprenticeship process, right? She goes.
Exactly.
She does her due diligence with time, and you think it's time for her to get her hands a little bit, and then
Yep.
when and you started, grooming her according to how you want her to be.
Yep, exactly. And tacking is, if you do a terrible job of tacking, it makes it harder for the welder. So it's an important skill to know first.
Right.
So if you can tack things up and tack things up and tack things up, and then we can start talking about the other stuff, right? So it's interesting because it does take a long time, but it's all a process. And I tell them, you just have to trust me. It's, I'm not crazy. You do get there.
Right.
So.
Well, and you seem to be doing pretty good for yourself. So it's like they should trust what you're doing.
Yeah, I got lucky. I had a great dad who was a tradesperson that taught me to have pride in my work. But I had a lot of really good mentors throughout my career, and I think that definitely shaped me. People taking the time to be like, it doesn't matter what that guy says over there.
Right.
That it has to be done, whatever. I'm going to show you how to do it right, and it's going to take a little bit longer, and you're not going to be doing anything while you're watching me, but that's what it takes. You're going to watch me do it, and then I'm going to watch you do it, and then I'm going to yell at you and tell you how to do it better, and you know what I mean? But it takes time, and that whole process is what I found was missing a lot.
Right.
It's funny because I got in, I was a boss relatively early because I started when I was young,
Right.
and I always liked being challenged, so I liked reading prints and being that person. And then it was some of my workers that mentioned to me that they were hiring at the college, and they thought enough of me that they were like, you should go be an instructor because you do a good job here.
Yeah.
I took that as a big compliment. And so I was like, I was having a really hard time of changing the attitude in industry where it was like, throw you in the corner with a grinder and hope you don't kill yourself, because it was flat out busy with the oil and gas. And so it was like, just get bodies in the building. And so it was really frustrating because I like to have people working for me that are competent, and I show them how to do the job so that after I've shown them, I can go do what I need to do or teach another person, and I don't have to go back and fix it.
Yeah. My goodness.
So I was like, well, it's not working in industry, so maybe I should go to the college and see if I can fix it there. Like, make some changes, right? Get in people's heads.
We're breaking.
Right? Speed will come with skill. And it could have worked, but no one wanted, and so I kind of came to the conclusion that's the way I'm going to be able to do it. So.
You are breaking up right now, Chris. Sorry. I didn't even hear that last sentence.
Yeah, I can see that you're stalled. I was just saying that I saw in the college that I couldn't do what I wanted, still curriculum, and there was still time around. So the best way to do this will be with my own company. If I want to do the best apprentices that I can, I need to do it myself.
Oh, yes. I just heard that part. Are you having an issue hearing me on your end?
A little bit, yeah. You're stalling out.
I don't know what's going on here. There. I think it's over. We had a moment.
Good.
Good. What the heck, man? You guys are like killing it with the questions. Sorry, I'm like not even like able to catch up right now. EPA, we're gonna go past that. Apprenticeship. Yes, we definitely need more apprenticeships. So if anybody's watching this, high schools, colleges, please, we need more apprenticeship on the job work. Now, it did obviously it does not scare you to have that because you implement it, but when you first started, were you like, what the heck am I thinking?
A little bit, yeah, because once you actually like dig in and try to teach somebody the way that they taught you, yeah, you're like, wow, this is going to take way longer than I thought.
Right.
Right? Not only the person, but the job, because while you're teaching them on the job isn't getting done as fast as it should be because you got to slow down to teach properly.
Right, right.
So in a big company, when you're a foreman and there's 10 other people doing things, and you can take 3 hours out to show this person this thing that normally takes an hour, it's not the end of the world. But when you're a two-person shop, when I was first doing it, and then this thing takes an extra couple of hours, then ultimately you're answering to the customer and be like, well, sorry, it's not going to be done. We just need more time, right?
So now, when you bid out a job, do you take in consideration the fact that you are taking some time off to have this apprentice? Is that put into it?
Yes, you have to. You have to factor some of that in, yeah. And of course, it fluctuates because we're growing relatively fast now, like honestly faster than I would really like. But it's like, do you turn down the work or do you just dig in and try to expand, right?
Sure.
So forever I bucked it and was like, I'll just turn all the work down. But I was like, you know what? We have this great opportunity and the work is getting better and better and better. So I was like, we really just have to expand.
Sure.
So I think at the end of this month, I think we'll have 7 employees.
So are you grooming somebody to do what you're doing so that you can take on more of the business end and you can have somebody doing more of the teaching end?
Sort of, yes.
I'm not trying
I don't.
to put you on the spot. I'm just kind of like
Yeah,
where you're at.
I'm doing a little bit of the opposite.
Uh-huh.
Because my wife is really good at the business stuff because all her training, she's a university graduate, and so I'm not a huge fan of that stuff, to be honest.
Right.
And so I've got my wife doing that as much as she can, and I'm actually grooming somebody to take over the rest of that stuff that I don't like, so that I can keep welding and teaching and apprenticing, which I think is important.
Yeah.
Because through arrogance and whatever else you want to call it, I still think I'm the best person here to teach people the skills that I have.
Right.
And so I want to make sure I pass that on so that in the future, those people are doing the work that I want to do.
No, that's
And then hopefully I can take more time off in the future instead of working all these crazy hours. But it's a long game for sure.
Now, are you looking into have you ever like thought about just having like a teaching aspect of this end for your business, maybe expanding more like I'm sorry.
With more time, I want to do it because I do enjoy it. Yeah, you bet. So I've before COVID, I used to fly around and I would teach classes with like Justin the Fabricator from the Fabrication series in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
We would go and do like 1 or 2 classes a year where I would come down and I still do. I think my last trip was 2019. Consulting trips. I used to do a lot more, but I cut it down once we had 4 kids. I was like, traveling the world
Right.
isn't the greatest thing. So I was like, I cut it down. And so I'm looking forward to going back to that because I've had a lot of offers, but of course with COVID, it's not going to work.
Right.
But that's why I'm kind of like digging in to train everybody in the shop so that I can get back into that stuff and be confident that everything's getting done to the quality that my customers are expecting when I'm not here.
Right. Well, quality control and just quality teaching alone is very important. It's something that I see is lacking right now. And it's funny because I just had this conversation with another school today. And it's true, there's a huge deficit. So for people who are actually qualified to teach, who can actually teach, there's a lacking in it. And there's a lacking of programs who, like they just get bodies in there for whatever reason, and they don't necessarily have a cohesive program. So somebody who, can actually do the work and can articulate it in a way to teach somebody that they actually learn, it's huge. So it seems like you have that magical equation, which is nice. You just don't see that too often. Someone who's willing to do it too. Not, a lot of people can do it, they just don't want to do it.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
It's not for everybody.
Definitely not. No.
It's not easy. I think it'd drive you crazy.
Yes.
And, like we're just talking about, you take some of that home, you internalize it, like those conversations you don't necessarily want to have. Like, it's not easy,
No, it's definitely not. Yeah.
But I know it's getting late, and I have so many other questions I want to ask. But you know what? I hope this has helped you. I know you have your list, and I know you guys are working late, so I don't want to keep you too long. But I appreciate this. This is a very interesting perspective. I hope we've helped you achieve greatness at your shop pretty soon here. Seems like you already achieved that. But yeah, dude, I appreciate your time and yeah, answering all these questions. Everybody loves you, dude. Like, I appreciate that. You even made me think of things that I didn't even think of. Like, I appreciate that too.
Well,
So
that's very cool. I was honored to be asked to be on here. I was a little uncomfortable because obviously I'm not a female, so I was like, I don't
I
know
know
how this is
that was
gonna.
the first
I
thing
do
you
get why you wanted me to come on, and that's why I was like, I think I have as much to learn as anybody from this. So
said.
I'm happy that you asked me to be on.
Thanks. Well, agreed. And yeah, the fresh perspective is always welcome. So appreciate it, Chris. Well, you guys have a good night.
Thanks very much.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.